Dear friends, welcome back to Automate with Rakesh. In this video, we are going to learn a very new topic. We will learn about event triggers and we will learn about input arguments. Now, the very first question that comes to our mind, what are these input arguments and when and how to use them? I have given a simple image. You can see it says UiPath event connector. This is an input argument which has the name of the connector, which is Salesforce. UiPath event created. What created? Account got created. That time the object ID of that account is so and so. So this is certain input arguments which are very important for you to understand and use it in your project. So let's understand what are they. I'm going to cover in detail how to set up triggers and utilize these inputs. So how do you create a trigger and how do you create this input arguments? You can see it here on the screen. I'm going to teach you from the scratch. I'm also going to show you how can you create a process in UiPath Studio and should be able to see these values. Okay, what is coming when you are typing UiPath event? What will come when you are typing UiPath event connector? What will appear when you say UiPath event object ID or object type? All of these things practically from the scratch we are going to learn. So stay tuned, do not skip the video and continue till the end. Otherwise you might miss a lot of key concepts. Let's move on to our studio. So our main objective is to learn the input arguments. What we will do, first we will get into UiPath Integration Service. Once you are in the integration service, let us first create a connection. As I promised you, I am going to start everything from the scratch. Okay, so let's go to connector first and type OneDrive and I'm going to click on OneDrive card. And here I am going to create a connection. Before you build a connection, it is a good practice to sign into that OneDrive account if possible. So because we are using our personal account, I have already signed into my personal OneDrive account. After that, I'll go back. And here I'm going to click on connect to Microsoft OneDrive and SharePoint. Okay, it doesn't ask for much inputs. It is going to automatically check whether if you are signed in, it is going to pick that up. Otherwise, it might prompt you to sign in. Okay, so you can see trying to sign in and it could pick sense that I have already logged in. So it has connected UiPath to Microsoft OneDrive. Okay, so the connection has been built here and you can see it says connected. This is the very first step. After that, what I wanted to build a trigger wherein if a file is getting created, for example, if I'm going to click on add new and click on Excel workbook, what is happening? I have created a file whose name is book3. The moment a new file is getting created, I want a automation to automatically start. If somebody is creating a file in my OneDrive or in the OneDrive, then the automation should automatically trigger. So how to do that? So now let's move on to UiPath Studio. As we go, your concept will be pretty clear. Just stay with me. Let's go to UiPath Studio. And here let us create a process. So I'll go and create a process. And I'm going to give it a name called quick testing -3. And I'm going to hit on create. Do you want to save the file? I mean, there was a previous project opened in the background, so I'm saying no to that. So you can see the project is now being created. What we will do, we will create few arguments. We will create few arguments. Remember, what are those arguments I was talking about? So if you open this particular document, triggers document, if you scroll down, it says when a trigger runs, it creates certain information for you that you can utilize for your workflow. It creates something called UiPath event connector. What is it? We will see. What is UiPath event? What is all of this we will see. So these are the default name of the arguments we have to use add as it is. So what I have done, I've copied this argument names to my notepad and I'm going to create one by one. So I'll copy the first name. I'll go to my studio, go to the arguments panel and create an argument. Let's create one. Now what is happening with the current version of the studio, I am facing an issue. The moment I hit on enter, the argument is getting created. However, it has not been seen here. So do not worry, but the arguments are getting created. I'll show you how. For example, right now, if I hit on enter, okay, if I'm going to use a message box, okay, and here, let me increase the font to 150. Now here, if you look at, if I'm going to simply say UiPath, you see UiPath event connector, that argument is being seen here. But the moment I'm going here, it has not been seen. There is some kind of issue right now. It might get fixed. So, okay, I have created the very first argument. Okay, this is an in argument, all a string type. Then I'll go for UiPath event. I'll click here, enter, and you can see in string, no changes, and I'm going to hit on enter. The second argument got created. If you type that, you will still find it. You can see event argument got created. All right. And UiPath event object type. I'll go here, create this, hit enter. Okay. Next thing, I'll create this UiPath event object ID. So right now we don't have any understanding what are they. We are simply creating it. I'm going to discuss that. Hit enter. So now what happened? There are 4 different things have been created. What we will do, we'll start utilizing them one by one in the order. So what is the first thing? The first thing is UiPath event connector. I will simply say it here. The UiPath event connector is, and then I'll use a plus sign and use that argument UiPath event connector. Done. Now let's save this. Let me copy until here. Let me create one more message box, copy, paste. And all I need to do is slide changes. Here we will use the second variable, control space, UiPath event. Okay, the second variable. And here I'm saying the UiPath event is, click on save, and now copy, paste. And the third thing that we have is object type. Okay, so I will say the UiPath event object type is, and instead of this, control space, event object type. Done, and hit on save, copy, paste. The last one is object ID. So here I'm going to say UiPath event object ID is, control space, object ID. Okay, so I've selected all the variables one by one so that we can print and see, okay, what kind of value is it carrying. Okay, so this is our simple this one, and at the end, copy, paste, and I am saying quick testing is finished. I'm putting some message box. Done. So all of this thing I have done properly. Let me save this, and I'm going to publish this to my orchestrator. Okay, I'm going to hit on next, quick testing 3. Nothing to change here. I'm going to put it to orchestrator feed. Next, and I'm going to hit on publish. Okay, so now it got published. Let's go back to our orchestrator. Now in the orchestrator, let me create a process for it. So I'll go to the process tab, add process, and I'm going to select quick testing 3. Okay, and here nothing to do much. I'm going to hit on next. Package requirement none. So hit on next. Display name, if you leave it blank, it will automatically going to pick that. So not a problem. Let us create. So finally, I have created a process that I have uploaded from my UiPath Studio. So the process is created in my orchestrator. So if I come back to my IT department folder and look at the process, you can see the process is now being created. Let's move on to our integration service. Okay, and here I'm going to click on add trigger and select my connector. Which connection we have made? For the Microsoft OneDrive. Okay, that has come, and then I'm going to select the event. So what is the event? There are multiple different kinds of event you can subscribe to. So on my OneDrive, if somebody is creating a file, file created event. File moved to trust, somebody deleted the file, this will come. File updated, somebody updated the file, new record created. Folder moved to trust, somebody moved the folder. So like that, there are different options are available. So based on your need, you will select the event. So here I'm selecting when someone creates a file on my OneDrive, I want a automation to start. So where this file is available in SharePoint or OneDrive, you will define it. It is there in OneDrive. I'll click on save. And here it is asking me select automation. Now remember, while creating this process on my studio, what we have done, we have created those arguments. For certain issue on my studio, it is not visible, but I have told you all those four arguments are actually available in my studio. Now all these arguments are in arguments. In means it is going to accept some value from outside, and the names has to be exactly the same as defined in the documentation of UiPath. You don't change the name or spelling. It has to be exactly the same way you have to create the arguments. Now what would happen if I go back to integration service, and here I'm going to select the process. What is the process name? Quick testing 3. Now the moment you select it, what would happen? It gives you all the input arguments that you have created for that process. So remember, we have created 4 different input arguments: UiPath event connector, UiPath event object type, UiPath event object ID. Now we don't have an idea what they are till now. I'm going to show you practically, don't worry. So simply understand, we have created these arguments in the process of UiPath Studio, and the moment I'm selecting the process in the trigger, it is automatically showing me all the arguments. And from where the values will come, it is saying based on trigger execution. Based on trigger execution, this is going to get the value. This much is clear? Great. Now let us select our runtime. I will select production unattended. So you can see one runtime, one connected. All good. Now I'm going to hit on add trigger. So this is the input arguments defined in the documentation. Exactly, we have created them. Okay. Now what happened? Your trigger is created, and what is it waiting for? If a file is getting created in the OneDrive, that's what it is waiting for. Okay, now what we will do, let's go back to the folder, click on connections, and you can see the trigger is created. In the trigger section, the trigger is active, it is constantly looking. Let's click on this in the under the connection. Here you would find the checking event every 5 minutes. Let's say you want to make some modification to this. This is called polling time. Polling means in every 5-minute interval, it is going to check if there's some changes has happened based on the trigger you have created. I'm going to click on this hyperlink, click on custom and make it to 1 minute and click on update and check. So now what happened? Every 1 minute is going to check. Just for testing purpose, I'm doing this. Okay. So now the trigger is absolutely active. Every 1 minute it is going to check if a new file getting created. If a new file getting created, then it is going to automatically start the process that we have defined. So what is the process we have defined? To automatically start quick testing 3. And what you have written in the quick testing 3, you have used those different arguments to see what values are coming. Pretty simple. Okay. So let's test it. Why delay? Let's go to our OneDrive. Let me click on add new and click on Excel workbook. I'm going to create a file. Okay. So you can see automatically on the OneDrive book 4, you can change the name. It has created. I'm going to write something and I'm going to close it. Now what happened? Before even I could close, the automation has already triggered, because the moment you are creating it, the file is newly created. So the automation has already triggered. So what happened? The very first value came is the UiPath event connector name is UiPath Microsoft OneDrive, because which connector is triggering this UiPath Microsoft OneDrive. Now let's come back to the slide and understand a little bit. So when you use this argument, UiPath event connector, this allows us to determine which connector in the trigger section started the automation. In the trigger section, you may be having multiple different connectors. Now, which one of them got triggered, we don't know, right? Based on, let's say, OneDrive getting triggered, you want to start a specific automation in a different way. If something else has been triggered, you want the steps to follow in a different way. So this helps you to determine which automation or which connector started. So you can use a switch activity, if activity, and put if the value of UiPath event connector equals to UiPath Microsoft OneDrive, then follow the steps. If the UiPath event connector value is UiPath hyphen SharePoint, then do this. UiPath hyphen SAP, then do this. So based on the connector value, we can determine. Okay, so seeing this value is important. You can see I have kept the screenshot. If you're using ServiceNow, the name will be slightly different. UiPath hyphen ServiceNow. You can practically check that by using this connector. And then SAP, then the value will be slightly different. Because we are using OneDrive, the value has come as UiPath Microsoft OneDrive. So you understood what is the value this argument is going to carry, UiPath event connector. This is the value, the name of the connector. Simple. Okay, let me move on to the next slide and then click on OK on this one, which is currently running. Now what happened? The next thing it is saying, the UiPath event is file created. You remember while creating the trigger, you have to select on which event you would like to create the trigger. You said file created. So that is why the name has come here, file underscore created. So this variable or the argument UiPath event contains the event name. If you have selected file moved to trash, then it would have kept the value file underscore moved underscore to underscore trash. If you have selected file updated, it would have got the value file underscore updated. Pretty simple. So UiPath event, which event triggered it? This helps us to understand the type of event that occurred. Pretty simple. Okay. So you understood what this argument contains from this live demo. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And let me click on OK here. So the next thing that is coming is UiPath event object type. So here file created. What will be the object? File. If you are creating a folder, for example, I have created a folder moved to trash. If I'm using this event, then what would be my object? Folder. What will be return type? It will return a file. If you are selecting file created, file moved, file updated, these are all, it is going to return the type as file. If you are dealing with folder, then it is going to return the value as folder. So it is UiPath event object type. For that event, what kind of object you will get? It is a file. Okay, so this defines the specific record type resulting from the event depends on the kind of event. So it depends on the kind of event. Okay, if you are using a folder move to trash event, then your object type will be folder. So it depends on various connectors, the kind of event that you're using. Based on that, the output would come. Clear? Okay, so we have understood about the input argument UiPath event object type. Let's move on to our next slide. And let me click on OK here. The last one is the object ID. So the file is the output file type and there is the ID assigned to it. So that ID is appearing here. Okay, so last time it was 2027, now it is 2031. Some different numbers, random numbers will come for that object ID. So what is this object ID? This provides the unique identifier for that object involved in the event. So I have created the book 4. So for that, this is the ID. So every file will have its own ID. Okay, so now you have got complete understanding of, let us go back, how we have started our, okay, quick testing finished. Let us quickly start from the beginning. What we have started, we wanted to understand what are these arguments, UiPath event connector, UiPath event object type, UiPath object ID, we got that. We wanted to understand how to create this. We understood, we have built a process, we have created arguments, we have uploaded that, and then we have created a trigger. We understood this. And then we have understood how to build on UiPath Studio. We have seen each of these values, how it is getting derived. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. I hope this video must have given you a lot of key concepts that is needed for this particular topic. So thank you for watching. Do not forget to like my videos that you're watching on my channel. Please continue to contribute for my channel. And thanks for everything. We are going to meet once again in our next content. Till then, take care.